Statistics South Africa, though, in other news, revealing that South Africa's unemployment rate has lowered to 34.5% in the first quarter of 2022 from 35.3% in the final quarter of last year. Most of those affected by unemployment are the youth. And as South Africa gears up to commemorate Youth Month in June, Servest has decided to amend its recruitment policies in place with the aim to put young South Africans from the age of 18 to 29 at the front and center of securing employment in different career paths, including cleaning and hygiene, catering and security services. This policy reaffirms the company's commitment, it says, to support the government's drive to empower young people, and it supports efforts to address youth unemployment in the country. In addition to these employment policies, the company will also offer young aspiring entrepreneurs the opportunity to start their own business through its enterprise supplier development program. These can range from a simple car wash establishment to catering and cleaning services and to more complex business support solutions. To talk more about this, we're joined now by Melanie Ann Bauer, Servest Acting Human Resource Director. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Let's just first start with your views on youth unemployment, and are we doing enough as a country? I know some of these are beyond our control, especially if we consider the external shocks that we've suffered over the past 2 years. But are we being innovative enough? I mean, the president spoke about that in the past 2 years, we have seen an expansion, they have overseen an expansion of public employment that is unprecedented in speed, scale and innovation. But if you speak to young people out there, I don't think they would concur. It certainly doesn't feel like that.
So I think, definitely from my side, is there more that South Africa can do in terms of, youth employment? The answer is definitely yes. If we are to look at, some of the stats that I was reading, 6 out of 100 people that start grade 1 actually go into education at a tertiary level. And therefore, the opportunity for those to go into what we would call, the typical lawyer, doctor or an accountant, it's really 6 of the 100 people in South Africa that have that opportunity. And therefore we need to start looking at perhaps something more structured around how do we ensure permanent employment, because often we'll find that the opportunities that have been given through learnerships, which has been provided by governments as an avenue, or internship programs, these are short-term, in the sense that it's a year or 3 years, and thereafter, the learner leaves with the qualification but does not have long-term employment. And therefore, I think, opportunities have been given to perhaps go into the market. However, the long-term goal is where I think we are lacking as South Africa in order to create sustainability, that they are able to find a career path and have a long-term career within the organizations. That also speaks to the supply and demand. Are we creating enough jobs within South Africa in order to allow, individuals to tap into the market? And this way is where I believe that ESD becomes extremely, important in terms of, are we creating enough room for entrepreneurship and innovation in order for that penetration to happen, so that, jobs do start opening up in those areas, as opposed to just relying on the skills element and really it being a short-term solution.
And I imagine that sustainability goes hand in hand with qualitative jobs as well. I mean, we've seen so many companies use the reasoning of COVID. I was going to say excuse. In some cases it has been plainly that, where they have slashed rates for people at such an alarming rate that I think if somebody is employed and they have a quality job and earnings that are will allow them to keep other members of their families from the streets, that is what we should be going towards, rather than forcing people into slave labor and saying you should be lucky you have a job, you're lucky you have an opportunity, an employment opportunity.
Sure. So I think you've really touched on a point. I mean, you know, I must be honest, I was looking at the stats in preparation for our conversation today, and our stats has dropped by about 3% in terms of, you know, employment of youth from pre-COVID to where we are today. So there has definitely been a impact and a negative impact in terms of our commitment to, you know, to employing youth. But that doesn't take away that, you know, you give one to take one. So, for example, within the market, what we have seen is, you know, by providing learnerships, that has decreased the amount that an employer can pay for services, where Servest has taken quite a little bit of a different approach, where we're saying our jobs are quite easy to access. You know, there isn't massive need for, you know, tertiary education, and therefore we absorb the person into our organization with permanent employment, and then implement the training and development for those people, you know, then providing the learnerships, and in that way affording them the opportunity to have job security in a long term, as opposed to the short term model of, you know, employing for a learnership, which is only 12 months.
So tell us about this program that you have running, and how you foresee it possibly being, you know, inspiring others to replicate it.
Sure. So, you know, I always believe that one can never ever, you know, apply a linear approach in how do we actively deal with, you know, the high unemployment rates amongst youth. And therefore, it's been a multifaceted approach that Servest has taken. So firstly, in terms of recruitment policies, we've built into our recruitment documentation and forms that, you know, whether we are employing youth, yes or no, it's a question. If we are not employing youth, you know, then a deviation needs to be followed through, you know, to allow for youth to penetrate what we, you know, there's no difficulties in becoming a security officer or a cleaner, for instance. Therefore, that is where we'll say, you know, first preference should be for youth. If we look at the stats, I mean, we're playing around, you know, the late 39% to 42% month on month in terms of where our stats are currently, with the aim to get to 50%. But once they're actually in our organization, what are we doing to equip them in order to see them grow? I have a beautiful story within security, which is one of the divisions that I look after within Servest, where we've seen a security officer become a general manager last year. These are success stories that we want to talk more about, where we equip the colleagues, and we start succession planning and building in. We've got mentorship programs. I mean, I am youth, you know, and this is also an example where Servest has trusted, you know, that they can upskill and grow people that are youth and give them the positions and put them into mentorship programs and back them and support them with our, you know, our senior management being there to help us. Also, we've created innovation forums where we allow the youth to come in with new ideas to keep us in the forefront, to be industry leaders. So I don't think that it's okay, let's just employ people that are youth, but it's also different facets that we need to touch on, so that as we uplift people, they don't just stay on, you know, the lower levels, that they're actually able to progress in terms of a stable career development program for these individuals.
Well, I really appreciate you speaking to us about your program, Melanie Ann Bauer, Servest Acting Human Resource Director, talking about their intervention to improve youth employment